Hello, welcome back to Blue Harvest History. Now, along with my passions of toys, the NFL, history, is the books of the Brontes, and specifically the history of the Brontes. And I'm going to be starting a series on the Brontes. Today's video is just a prologue. We're going to start out with the father of the Brontes, Patrick, and in the coming months we'll be going out and about, following in the footsteps of the Brontes. So as I say, today's video is just going to be a start, part one if you like, or a prologue even, and just some background of the Brontes' father. So we'll begin our journey in 1802 when an ambitious young Irishman, Patrick Bronte, enrolled as an undergraduate at St John's College, Cambridge. Driven by ambition, he set about acquiring the education he would enable him to leave his humble origins far behind. This important new phase of Patrick's life was marked by a change of name when he became Bronte instead of Bronte. It had been suggested that Bronte was emulating his hero Nelson, who was recently become Duke of Bronte. St John's had funds able to assist a poor man like Patrick to gain a university education, and his abilities attracted influential sponsors throughout his academic career, including William Wilberforce, the anti-slavery campaigner. It seems that Patrick had already decided on a career in the church, and St John's was renowned with his evangelical connections. Following his graduation in 1806, Patrick was ordained and took up his first position as curate at Wethersfield in Essex. During this time at Wethersfield, Patrick fell in love with his landlady's niece, Mary Burden, and the courtship came to an abrupt end. Mr. Bronte travelled to Glenfield, a small parish outside Leicester, where he had been offered a curacy. In the event, Patrick declined the curacy at Glenfield. All Saints Church at Wellington, Shropshire, was a modern building when Patrick Bronte took up the duties of curate there in 1809. The building has an elegant grey stone facade with regular rows of large rectangular windows. During his time at Wellington, Mr. Bronte met his lifelong friends, William Morgan, and his fellow curate at Wellington, Mr. John Fennell, the master of the local day school. And here's where it gets quite interesting for me anyway. We are going to go down and film at Dewsbury Church. In December 1809, after almost a year at Wellington, Patrick Bronte headed north when he was appointed curate at Dewsbury Church. John Buckworth, the vicar, was in poor health, and the burden of the church officers was carried by Bronte. He was hard-working and ambitious, and came to win the respect of his parishioners. In 1811, Patrick Bronte was appointed minister of the small Norman church at St Peter's at Hartshead, a post he held for 4 years. Mr. Bronte's tales of Luddite violence in the area formed the backdrop of Charlotte's novel Shirley, and the evangelical Hammond Robertson, a former incumbent at Hartshead and a friend of her father's, provided a model of Matthewson Helston in the novel. The older image shows the building before the extensive alterations were carried out in 1881. There was no official parsonage at Hartshead, and for much of the time there Mr. Bronte lodged in the rather bleak-looking lousy Thorne Farm. The old farm, now known as Thornbush Farm, still survives, but is in a neglected condition. In 1812, the new school opened at Woodhouse Grove, Appleby Bridge, near Bradford. It was a Wesleyan academy for the son of clergymen, and Patrick's friend from Wellington, John Fennell, was headmaster. Patrick Bronte was invited to examine the boys at Woodhouse Grove in the classics, and it was here that he met Fennell's niece, Maria Branwell. Following the deaths of her parents, Maria was left her home in Penzance, Cornwall, to assist her Aunt Jane in the school's domestic arrangements. It is believed that Patrick Bronte proposed marriage to Maria Branwell in the romantic ruins of Kirkstall Abbey near Leeds. This medieval Cistercian abbey is set in a beautiful parkland along the banks of the River Aire. In 1834, Charlotte Bronte made a pencil drawing of the abbey, probably copied from a print, which was exhibited in 1834 at the summer exhibition of the Royal Northern Society for the encouragement of fine arts in Leeds. On 29th December 1812, following a whirlwind courtship, Patrick Bronte and Maria Branwell were married at St Oswald's Church, Guiseley, near Leeds, in a joint ceremony with William Morgan and Maria's cousin Jane Fennell. Patrick and William acted as official clergymen for each other's marriages, while Maria and Jane were each other's bridesmaids. Mr. and Mrs. Bronte probably lived in Patrick's lodgings in Louthorne. Following their marriage, they eventually moved to Clough House, Hightown, nearly a mile away from Hartshead Church, and it was there that the eldest daughter Maria was born in 1814, followed by Elizabeth in 1815. Externally, the three-storey house remains largely unchanged, although a plaque commemorating their occupation of the house has been set above the front door. In 1815, Mr. Bronte was appointed perpetual curate in Thornton, near Bradford, and the Bronte family moved into the parsonage on Market Street. It was here that the four famous Bronte children were born in quick succession: Charlotte, 1816, Patrick Branwell, 1817, Emily Jane, 1818, and Anne in 1820. In the early 20th century, the frontage of the house was extended to incorporate a butcher's shop. After a checkered history, the building is currently for sale and its future uncertain. The Bronte family lived at Thornton from 1815 to 1820, and during this time the 17th century bell chapel was renovated and a cupola added. All the Bronte children, with the exception of Maria, were baptised here. In 1870 the church of St James was built across the road. The old bell chapel was abandoned and now lies in picturesque ruins. The Brontes enjoyed a pleasant social life while at Thornton, centring on the wealthy Firth family at Kippax House and their wide circle of friends. Mr. Firth and his daughter were godparents to Emily Bronte, and Miss Firth was also godmother to Anne. Following the death of Mrs. Bronte, Patrick proposed marriage to Elizabeth Firth and was rejected, causing a temporal rift in their friendship. Kippax House remains in a private residence, although it has been surrounded by modern housing. The older image shows Thornton in the early years of the 20th century. In March 1819, Mr. Bronte escorted a large group of young people to be confirmed in the parish church at Bradford. The weather deteriorated and Mr. Bronte arranged for the entire group to be served hot meal at the Talbot Hotel, just off the top of Darley Street, before they set out on a 4-mile walk back to Thornton. In the late 1830s, when Bramwell worked as a portrait painter, he lived at Fountain Street in Bradford, where he also had a studio, and would sometimes drink at the Talbot. So that's part 1 done. The early days of the Brontes. In part 2 we'll be arriving at Haworth, and we'll take a look at the parsonage. And as I say, I will be following this up with actual footage. I'm going out and filming these places, as many as I physically can. So please thumb up this video and let me know if you like it. If you want to see more of this, let me know in comments what you want to see. I will be doing follow-ups. I'll be doing part 2 obviously, and we'll be ongoing with this. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please subscribe if you're not already. So thank you for watching, and look out for your history.